to TLC, where we dive into the heart of our local community, its wineries, business, and real estate. I'm your host, Troy Anderson, along with my co host, Pamela. We're here to bring you a new perspective on what's happening in our community. And we do have another guest this week. A special guest, Brandon Roy with Fairway Independent Mortgage Corp. Worked with Brandon for, 15, 16, 17, 20 years.
Yeah, something like that.
You know you're both aging yourselves now.
I know, right? So I'm super excited to have you on the show and talk about what's going on in the mortgage world.
Okay, well, before we get to that, let's start with segment one, shall we?
Oh, yeah, we're jumping ahead, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, I'm surprised at you for, sipping on success is first.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
our first segment where we uncork a bottle of something from the Washington region. So, Troy, what do you have for us this week?
Well, I've got a bottle of wine called LTL, and it's made by Upchurch Vineyard in Eastern Washington. They don't have a tasting room here that I'm aware of, but I was able to find this at a local establishment, Costco.
It's local. It's on our doorstep.
And but it does have a story. It's made by Chris Upchurch. He was one of the founding partners at DeLille Winery.
Oh, I remember Greg talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely a Woodinville icon as far as winemakers are concerned. But he has his own brand and label now, and they're right there in Red Mountain, and just as you come into, I think it's Benton City.
Okay.
So.
Is my recollection right that Greg Lill said that this guy makes some of his wines for him now?
I think he said he had in the past, or he
Okay.
intended to have him make some in the future,
Okay.
because the Lill family wines is made by other local winemakers.
Mhm.
But we're here to talk about Upchurch
Yeah.
today.
So why this one? I mean, it's a cool bottle. I like the label. It's very modern.
Yeah, the LTL stands for larger than life.
Oh. Okay.
Our LTL larger than life wines boast rich and generous flavors that bring craftsmanship into our everyday life.
Okay.
So have you had this before?
I have had it before, yeah.
Okay.
At Bricks. They sell it at Bricks.
Okay. And if you don't know what Bricks is, it's a really great restaurant down there
In Wooden Creek.
Wooden Creek. Yeah. Absolutely. If you haven't tried it, you should. The food's really good.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Troy. All right.
Pass them around,
The
and
proof
we
is
should-
in the pudding, as they
Thank
say, as we're gonna try this. All right,
Cheers,
so
everybody.
Cheers.
All right.
Okay.
Do we have to spit it out?
No, you get to drink it throughout the show.
Yeah, there's no bucket. Sorry.
Because I wasn't going to anyway.
All right, it's a nice, rich colour to it. It's got a little
Yep.
bit. Has it got legs?
It's got some
No
legs. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to take my first sip while you guys talk about
Okay.
it. Tell me what you think.
I think it has. It's a 2020. It tastes a little young still.
Okay.
So what does that
Meaning-
what does that mean?
Let's put him on the
Awkward
spot.
silence. Yeah. It means it might need to sit in the bottle a little bit longer,
Okay.
or age or air. It might help with some aeration.
Mhm. It's quite light.
It is. It's light. It's like a not a table. It's not a table wine. It's definitely.
No, it's got some good
Something,
flavour
yeah.
to it, but
Yeah.
it's actually lighter on my tongue than I thought it was going to be. When you look at the colour, you think it's going to be a little heavier.
Yeah, totally.
But no, it was actually refreshingly light. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell whether it's young or not. I mean, I'm not the expert. Troy is.
I just know I'm old, so this probably is young.
Okay.
Well, do you like it?
No, I do. I like it. I wouldn't have been like, this is young. I would have
Okay.
been like, it tastes good.
All right.
I'm with you. I'm like, what does he mean? This is delicious. So what are we tasting in here then? Even though Troy says it's young, there is definitely some distinct flavour in there. What are you guys tasting?
I get like a raspberry.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at that part.
Yeah. It's a
just know
little
if I like
tart.
it.
So I don't know if
Yeah,
the words are coming to me.
I'm not getting the tartness.
Really?
I'm really not.
Maybe it was a gum I was chewing earlier.
Yeah, maybe not do that next
Yeah.
time. Don't eat gum before you.
Have a palate cleanser first.
Yeah, it's like don't
Seriously.
brush your teeth before you drink wine or orange juice.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I like it. It's soft. It's supple. It does have a light fruit to it. It's not kind of really.
It's not a bash you over the head fruit bomb.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those ones you could have it with meal, but you could have it
Yeah.
on its own. It's definitely but it's very drinkable from my perspective.
I think so too. I think
you're
it's
done.
very drinkable, and it's also reasonably priced. So,
I think I
always
should
good.
probably have a couple more glasses before I tell you what I think.
Okay,
Really?
so
Yeah.
so we need to come back to you. We need to do success
We need to get farther in the show.
Maybe it'll get older as
Take a few
we
more
sit
sips.
here.
It does. Wine does change just in the glass while it's sitting there. So, there's some truth to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's yeah, I really like this. It's not one I've ever heard of either.
Okay. Well,
You know.
Why did you decide this one?
because I was at Costco buying a ream of paper for the office, and I figured I'd
That
just
is
expense
really
this.
random.
And you just thought larger than life. That's just
Larger than life.
Troy
No, I
is
saw it.
larger
I
than life.
Well, that's true. No. No, I recognized the label from ordering it at Bricks and said, "Oh, they have this at Costco. Oh, it's reasonably priced. This is one of the founding winemakers of Woodinville Wine Country, even though he doesn't have a tasting room here any longer, or at all. But DeLille's still around, and I think he's still a part of that.
Yeah. What I like about it is it's not too drying.
No,
I like wine, but I'm not always a massive fan when it sucks all that moisture out of your tongue.
oh really?
But this-
I like
yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah, I don't.
I like it. It's a little chewy.
Chewy. This expression chewy about wine, I just think it's really weird, but that's okay. I don't understand the whole chewy thing.
It's like when you wake up in the morning and your mouth is all dry and you just want to chew something to soften it up.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah,
don't.
I've never thought that once when
Really?
I drink wine now.
I think we're getting a little off track here. Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing this one in, Troy. I do
Yep.
like it. I think it's nice and light. It's bright. I think it's a great summer wine, actually.
For sure.
I'm not saying you can't drink it in the autumn
It's a good
and the
fall
winter.
wine.
Yeah, as we transition into fall, I think it's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shall we take a quick break and come back?
Let's do that.
All right.
We'll talk everything mortgage.
Yes, we
Fairway
will.
Independent Mortgage Corp.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this very short break.
This podcast is brought to you by JB Family Growers. Hey there, homeowners and home buyers. If you're looking for a real estate team who genuinely cares about your needs, Tend Home Team is here for you. We're not just focused on making sales, but on building long-term relationships with our clients and serving our wonderful community. Whether you're buying or selling, let us guide you through the process and help you achieve your real estate goals. Connect with Tend Home Team today. Welcome back to TLC, 10 Life Community. We're here with Brandon Roy with Fairway Independent Mortgage. So Brandon, as a mortgage broker, you have unique insights into the current market trends. How do you suggest potential home buyers navigate the challenges of higher interest rates today and still find affordable options?
Well,
I was going to say, it feels like a big question.
Well, if I can answer that, then we'll solve all the world's problems.
Do your best.
I mean, I think the biggest challenge, and I think we were talking about this off air, is obviously affordability. And obviously higher interest rates create even more of an issue with affordability. So I don't know. What I typically tell clients is you got to make decisions for what your life is now. You have to decide where you're at if you're wanting to take that step to buy a home now. And interest rates is really, it's a little part of what, of what it is. But the truth is, if you really want to, produce wealth in your life, and the number one way to do that is to own property. Right. And so to continue to pay rent, no matter what the interest rates are, isn't necessarily going to get you to that goal if that's what your goal is. So I think people make too big a deal out of the interest rates. I think that we're just kind of in a market where, obviously we had all these years of people gaining equity, house prices going up. Mm-hmm. That was pushing affordability issues already, and then interest rates pop up, and so that was kind of like a double-edged sword and the perfect storm. And I think now that they've settled and people are kind of used to what they are, I think we're kind of back in a market where it's like, well, you just got to make a decision on what makes sense for your financial picture now. And I think that's what we try to focus on, is how do we help you obtain your goals. Rates are always going to change. Markets always change. They're cyclical. So, what can we do to get you into a house? now and make it affordable. So.
Gotcha.
It's an interesting point you made there. This is going off at a tangent just a little bit. You said people have to think about buying a house, what's right for them, and whether they want to grow wealth. Do you really think that most people see their home, if it's their first home, as a wealth builder, or are they really seeing it as, this is my castle, this is where I'm gonna live, I'm potentially gonna have a family? Is the mindset, does it depend on who the person is, whether it's a wealth thing or whether it's a home thing?
Well, I mean, I think if they don't see it that way, that they're kind of missing out. I mean, I think most people think of it as a place for them to live.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think people are more savvy these days, especially with so much information out there. So, I mean, I do think that they understand that there is this part of it where, hey, this is an investment. Right. And I'm going to be paying this amount of money anyways either paying somebody else's mortgage, or I can pay my own and gain equity. So I do think that it's both. But I mean, most people obviously, when they're looking for a home, they're trying to find a place to live.
Yeah.
But that's why residential real estate is so great, is you get to actually do two things at once, right? You get to have a place where it's yours, that you get to live in, and it's also an investment.
You could paint it the color you want, as long as the HOA allows it.
I mean, it's the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life, potentially, is your home. But I just wonder about the mindset when people are looking at homes, because there's definitely that kind of emotional attachment to buying a home. So whether, if people can detach from that just a little bit and see that it's a potential to grow wealth, whether people think differently about interest rates and those kinds of things. The question I was really going to lead in with was, obviously interest rates are higher than they have been for quite some time. And higher than we've seen in many years, right? But what strategies or programs do you recommend for individuals that are struggling to save for a down payment for their dream home? Because that's a big part of getting into a property, is the down payment side of things, right? So you need that in order to potentially lower what your monthly payment is going to be. So what can you advise people of their strategies to get on in line with what their needs are?
Well, I think there's two things or two avenues you can go in, and I think obviously the first one would be you're just going to have to save. I mean, there are options out there, with 3% down, 3.5% down. There is down payment assistance programs. Problem with the area we live in, and one of the reasons there's affordability issues, is home prices are fairly high here, right? So down payment assistance programs are also capped with income limits, things like that. So it's like, and their terms are always worse. So is that the best option for you, other than waiting longer and saving? I think the other thought is, like you were saying, people see it as a place to live rather than an investment. I think if we can switch it to more 50-50 or even 75-25, thinking this is really an investment to get me to where I can have the house I really want. Yeah. That to me, that's the better strategy, because that will allow you to say, well, wait, maybe I don't need to live in the specific neighborhood that I'm looking for, which will allow you to go farther out, go places where you can find homes that are more affordable. You can use things like USDA loans, which have 0% down, because you're out in more of a rural area. I mean, especially in this area, if you go out to rural areas, they're really not that far. I mean, you can go out past Lake Stevens, you can go out in Monroe. If you're willing to sacrifice location because it's an investment, I mean, I think that, to me, those are the sort of things that you have to do. You have to be able to sacrifice everything I want now to get in, so that you can get something later. And I think, I don't know, I feel like my generation kind of was more did that. My first condo I bought was in Seattle, but it was like a 650 square foot condo. Right. Like, I wasn't trying to buy a 3-bedroom house, because I couldn't afford it. Right. But I just wanted to get into something. And so to be able to sacrifice that, instead of this idea that I have to have this perfect house to live in, and to be able to say, what can I give up to have this? Well, that's really how investing works anyways. Anybody who's ever made money investing in anything sacrifices something. But people tend to not, like you said, their mindset before is, well, this is where I live, I want it to be perfect. It's like, that's not reasonable if you want it to be affordable. Right. Yeah. And that you have to make that decision. Yeah.
I've always thought it's a good idea for for first-time home buyers or even downsizers to maybe get into an investment property like a duplex or triplex, something like that, where you have, maybe 3-bed, 2-bath. You've got all the space you need, but your mortgage then is subsidized by the neighbor who's right next door, maybe separated by a garage, so you're not super close.
Yeah, and I guess if your mind is set on, okay, I want that 3-bedroom house, and you can't really afford it, there's always options to have, go in with somebody else, and then you split, later on you sell and you split the proceeds, the equity, and then go on to buy something else that's more affordable that you can do on your own. I guess would be another way to do it, right? For sure.
Yeah, we actually had some clients do that. Brother and sister bought a house together, and then they walked away with equity, and now they want to do stuff on their own.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to lead back to, because you mentioned first-time home buyers, and I think that's, in this area, that's a challenge, right? People are trying to get into the market for the first time. It feels like it's unattainable potentially for some people because, homes are expensive. But are there any specific mortgage products or loan options that you believe are particularly beneficial for first-time home buyers? Trying to enter the real estate market, while we have these higher interest rates. Hopefully they'll come down at some point, but it's not going to be overnight. So, if you're sitting there waiting, what can you advise?
Well, with a first-time home buyer thing is, in the mortgage world, it's kind of funny because we have these categories for things, but the truth is it's just a way to get people to come be a looky-loo and say, oh, what do my finances look like to see if I can buy a house? Because 99% of the time when I run into a first-time home buyer, if they're qualified, and I ain't putting them in a first-time home buyer product because the terms aren't as good as if they were to do something else.
Okay.
But there are options for first-time home buyers where you can do less down, like I said, 3% down or 3.5% down. There are options where you can do down payment assistance. There's bond programs out there where that will give them their 3 to 4% for down payment or closing costs. Now, as long as their income will allow them to use those products, those are good products to get into things. Again, if you're looking at somebody's full financial picture, because that's what I do. I'm not just trying to get somebody into a home and do a transaction, right? I'm trying to help them build something in their life, and my main focus is, and I think we have a project going on, me and Troy, to help people deal with financial health and wellness in their life.
Right.
So making good decisions up front, not just I do want people to get into real estate, but I don't want to just cram them into something.
Yeah.
Because that's not good either for them, right? Yeah. If you can't save for a down payment, how are you going to afford your mortgage payment every month if it's stretching you?
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at stuff like that, but there are good things for first-time home buyers. The terms for them that really are more beneficial to them are people who maybe are struggling with their credit, or don't have as much down payment. Like I said, they can do 3%. They'll allow you to have maybe lower credit thresholds, different things like that. Now that's where it's really more helpful for people. They throw this term in their first-time home buyers, but you can actually do that for people who aren't even first-time home buyers. It's not necessarily a specific thing for them. Like I said, a lot of that's just marketing stuff. So just to get the phone to ring and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know what Troy thinks about that. But
yeah, no, there's certain specific buzzwords that people use to, like you say, get the phone to ring or the emails to come in, and then that product is not a great product at all. So spinning them off onto something else that is more beneficial for them, that's where you come in. Yeah. I appreciate that, because there's just about as many mortgage programs as there are houses available on the market.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can get a USDA loan, right?
Yeah.
Does
I'm
that come with
thinking
a
beef.
I know. Does that come with a meat locker? Or what? Back when I first got into real estate, it was the USDA. What's that? Why would the USDA be giving loans?
It's the Wagyu
I might do that. Buy a house and get a side of beef.
Really?
There you go.
Oh, okay,
That's our new promo.
Moving gift, side of beef. Okay, what if you're a vegetarian?
Yeah, no, just kidding.
Side of broccoli.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the USDA loans. There must be more.
Yeah, so from a planning perspective, is there any other alternative financing? I mean, seller financing or wraparound mortgages have been kind of a buzzword lately because
Oh yeah, what's a wraparound mortgage?
wraparound mortgage is where you basically take over payments for someone after you put down the down payment. And there's a lot of caveats to that, but
Doesn't sound very straightforward.
no. And and then is there opportunity for seller financing?
Well, I mean, that would definitely not be my field. That would be the sellers.
But I mean, in conjunction with a mortgage, can you do like the seller carry back a second mortgage, things like that?
I mean, I think there are options to. I mean, yes, but you're still going to have to deal with down payment stuff like that. I mean, it's not necessarily going to solve a problem. If that makes sense, because you can also do. I mean, you can go do a line of credit as a second. I mean, yes, you can still do secondary financing. So I don't necessarily see. Again, these aren't products that are being used very often.
Okay.
And are they very helpful? Not necessarily. I mean, I think the bond, like I mentioned, the bond programs, which is the state and the counties have different programs that will allow people to get down payment assistance, things like that.
So can I just stop you there for a second? Can you explain a little bit more about? I'd never heard of a bond down payment plan or whatever it is you're calling it. Can you, for our listeners who maybe are like in the same boat as me, don't know what that is?
So Washington State, like every state, has a housing finance commission, and they obviously have bonds out there where they allow make money so that they can create programs for people to get into houses more, with first-time homebuyer programs, or if they're down payment assistance. And so what is it? The Washington State Housing Finance Commission website. There's a bunch of different programs they can go on there and look and see if they qualify, and they'll do them for different reasons. Maybe they're trying to build up a certain community, and they'll say, hey, we're going to do it within this range. There's this 3% that you can
boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries, things like that. And then there's just some general ones that they have in Washington that anybody could apply for if they wanted to. And it'll give them 3 to 4% down payment assistance, and now they then have to use that particular the Washington State Housing Finance Commission's programs, which are they're the same. That's like FHA and conventional, but their terms are not going to be the same as if you went and had your own down payment.
Okay.
So they're going to historically they've been worse. The rates have been worse and things like that. That's not always the case. I can't say that definitively, but. But yeah, there's an ability for you to go and get essentially free money. Now, some of them there's payback; you have to pay it back. Some of them you don't. There's a bunch of different ones.
Some of them you have to own or occupy and live for a certain amount of time in the house.
Yeah, and so again, they also, some of them have guidelines that are restrictive, like your income can't be more than 80% of the average in that area, and again, if you're at 80% of the average income in an area around here, you're probably not going to be able to afford a house. So that's why those programs around, let's just say Woodinville, Bothell, Greater East Side, Seattle, they're not necessarily used that much. Right. Now, if you push out to other areas where things are a little more affordable, then they may make more sense.
It sounds as though then, mortgages are, I don't want to say customizable because it's probably not the right term, but you can help customize a direction for somebody that's looking for a home by the sounds of it, because you have access to multiple, different options for mortgages. Would that be a fair enough assessment? Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that. What you'll see, though, is most people end up in very specific products, which would be a 30-year fixed conventional product. Or FHA, those are going to be the most used products because they're going to have the better terms, and they do well even allow for you to go down as low as 3% down as first-time home buyer and things like that, and FHA is 3.5% down. So typically we're pushing them into the products that are going to be the least expensive for them. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So given current higher interest rates, can you suggest under certain terms maybe doing an adjustable rate mortgage, or I know that some buyers are allowing, or some sellers are allowing a closing cost credit to buy the rate down, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, if you can get the seller to do a buy down for you, that makes sense. If you don't have the seller paying for it, it really doesn't make sense because you're just paying for it yourself. You're just reducing your payment by paying a larger chunk up front. Anytime you're paying a discount or buying your rate down, you're really just paying the interest up front.
Gotcha.
That's really what you're doing. So if you can get the seller to do it, then that's going to make financial sense. And it can definitely be helpful in the affordability issue if you can get them to buy it down 1 or 2% for the first year or two. Obviously, the risk is if, most people think, and this is even back in like 2008. This was the common, before 2008, before that crash. The common thing in the mortgage world. It was funny because when I think I got in like 3 or 4 years before that. But the common thing taught to mortgage people was, well, everybody's just going to make more money as they get older. And so it's like, oh, let's just, and it's like, well, that's
really?
so, no,
okay.
yeah, exactly. No. And that was the fantasy world that I think, our culture was in at that point. So the hard part.
Or you can just refinance.
Yeah, exactly. And that was,
that went away quick.
yeah, totally. That was all proven untrue very quickly. But,
Yeah.
so the buy down, obviously, you have to be prepared to be able to take a higher payment after the first year or two, whatever your buy down is. So
Okay, so that was going to be my question. Okay, so it only lasts a certain amount of time.
for a certain kind of buy downs. Now, it's very typical nowadays for people to pay a discount point to take a lower rate, and that is still considered a buy down because you're paying interest up front to take a lower rate. That rate then is there for as long as you. Now, we will work that out with our clients whether that makes financial sense, because if you're thinking rates are going to drop in the next year or 2 years, well, then buying down a rate doesn't necessarily make any sense because you're not going to.
Because you're going to want to refinance out of it.
Yeah, and you're not going to see the gain of doing that because you'll refinance before you break even.
Okay. Sorry to keep asking questions, but what's the cap on that? So, is there a cap on how much you can buy down?
It depends on the rate sheet, how rates work, things like that. I mean, but there's the thing. We would look more like, does it make sense, right? So, I mean, yes.
So if it's $10,000, you cost average that out over the life of the loan and figure out where your break-even point is.
Exactly, and how long do you think you're going to be in this mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So it is that monthly savings adding into the cost, and where does that break-even point? And so the hard part is we can't forecast markets very well. So based on all the information I had a year or 2 years ago, everybody thought rates would already be starting to go back down. But they are, 2 weeks ago, they were at a 30-year high. So, it's tough.
So you don't have a crystal ball either then?
I wish.
Basically.
Well, if I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be somewhere else.
Beach somewhere.
Well, thanks, Brandon. Glad to know you're happy to be here.
Yeah, for those of us without the forethought.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on we were talking about creditworthiness. So, what role does that play in obtaining favourable interest rates? And are there more strategies or steps individuals can take to improve their credit scores and secure more affordable mortgage rates? I know potentially that sounds like a no-brainer, but just so we put it out there, what can people do? What should they be thinking about? There's certain things you hear like, if you're thinking about buying a house, don't go buy a new car, don't take out a new credit card. So, can you just kind of walk us through that just a little bit, what people should be thinking about?
Well, I think the first thing they should be thinking about is they literally should go fill out an application and meet with a mortgage person, and hopefully it's me. But
we'll give you Brandon's details at the end of the show.
Yeah. Well, because it's I don't think it's a complicated question. It's just there's a lot of variables to it, right? There's not one answer for anybody. That's why sitting down and getting your ducks in a row and getting your financing in order is important. The number one thing that I want to look at first and foremost is their credit, because if we have to fix something or if there's something on there, we want to be able that's going to usually take the longest.
Yeah.
Other than if you're having income issues, because that's just a whole different thing. It's like, well, how do you make more money, right? But credit it's also easily fixed. It just takes time. So getting on and out in front of that is one of the best things you can do. But things that you can do to be, before you meet with somebody is obviously make sure you have a credit score. you're definitely going to want it to be higher than as high as you can. I mean, that's going to give you the best terms. Now, and what I mean terms is it, like you said, it does make your rate and your fee structure better when you have better rate. Also better with with down payment stuff. There are programs like we talked about before that will alleviate some of that for first-time home buyers, or if you use FHA loan, which is just a government insured loan, where your credit isn't as important as far as the rate and fees go. But it definitely, when you're talking about rate and fees, it's tiered by your credit scores. So being able to look at what's hindering your credit score is important. Now, like I said, that's where it gets a little unique. You have to figure out what it is for each person. Why is their score down? The algorithms they use are kind of funky. So it's the utilization of your debt versus how much you have. It's like
Yeah, it's complex. It's not easy. But if people think
if you pull this lever, then those
Yeah.
levers are out of whack.
And then the
you pull
cherries
that
come
lever,
down.
Yeah,
and
it's like, I don't know.
Exactly.
like game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah. And a lot of people, which because I've been in the mortgage world for 20 years, I didn't do this, but I can see this would be more my thinking too. It's like, well, I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use credit cards and stuff. But the problem with that is our whole system set it up around you using credit cards.
Yeah.
And having, a credit score. So you can't borrow money if you don't
Have a
have
credit,
score.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I had a 000 credit
Yes,
score.
he did.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had to.
I had to go get a prepaid credit card
Mm-hmm.
and make
Wow.
payments on it for a while to get a credit score.
I mean, I'm sure you did. I know my mum talking about my uncle moved to the States, I don't know, like decades and decades and decades ago. Came with nothing, no credit score, couldn't buy a house, so he had to go out and like buy something on credit, even though he didn't want it. Just
Right.
So it's interesting that you want to be responsible, but you have to buy things in order to gain that credit. I guess
We did the Dave Ramsey thing for years and just paid cash for everything. And
Dave Ramsey, I don't know who that is.
he's a financial guy.
Okay.
He's about paying cash for everything.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the why you would want to pay cash for things. I'm the same way, but like you said, unless you use your credit card, you're not going to build a fingerprint or a profile or whatever you want to call it for that credit score, right? So I guess people should know what their credit score is at all times.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other tricky thing is you're looking at different. You look at Credit Karma, you look at the Experian, all these places that give you your free credit score. That doesn't mean that's what we see as your credit score.
Oh, interesting.
There's different credit scoring systems, and it's like I said, it's a complicated thing.
I think they keep it complicated, like the Wizard of Oz. They just want you to.
Who's behind the curtain?
Who's behind the curtain?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is they just want you to go and get a credit score because they sell your information.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for that happy thought, Brandon.
No, that's what they do. I mean, as soon as you go do a mortgage application, unless you, unless you opt out,
Right.
you're gonna get 800 phone calls and text messages and mail.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How do you opt out?
There you can go to the bureaus and there's an opt out.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we try to tell people to do that, but sometimes you're going quick and you're not able to. Some people are like, how come I getting all these phone calls? And I'm like, well, it's not us. It's the bureaus. The bureaus sell your information as soon as you credit. Same with if you get a credit card. The funny thing is, it's if you file bankruptcy, you will immediately after you're done have all kinds of credit card options and all kinds of stuff in the mail because they know you can't file bankruptcy again for another 7 years or 10 years, whatever it is.
Again,
whatever it is.
happy, pleasant thoughts.
Yeah.
We divulge.
So I would call it a racket on here, but somebody might hear it and I'll end up.
You just
You're in
did.
trouble. Well, I think it's a racket. I mean, I just think I don't know. It's like smoke and mirrors, and I have no real control over the outcome. I mean, I can best behavior myself the best I can, but
Oh, you're talking specifically about the credit scores.
about the credit score, and just how that plays into everything in our society these days.
Yeah, it's like be responsible, but go buy this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we keep talking about the increase in interest rates, and I don't want the show to be all about that, but it plays a big factor in what's happening, you know, in the marketplace. And so for, you know, anyone who is currently a homeowner, who is you know, maybe considering selling their current home, and then they're going to re-enter the market as a buyer, you know, how can they strategically time their transition? I mean, this might be a question for both of you, actually, to minimize the impact of that higher interest rates, you know, their line of credit, you know.
I mean, I don't think you can make decisions that way. I mean, because then you're just, I mean, it's like you're playing the stock market, or you're gambling. It's like you can't, I mean, even when we deal with rates and people locking in the rate, because I mean, that's what we deal with. It's like, when do I lock my rate in? When do I not? Like, you know, we usually process is 20 to 30 days that we go through, and it's like, but you're literally just creating, I mean, you're never going to be able to pick the top of a market. You know, if you look at it as a bell curve, it's like, well, you just got to be somewhere on the top of the curve. Well, that's not so hard to be, like, just figuring it out. But even then, like I said before, I think the number one thing is you got to make decisions for your life where you're at now. That's just how it works. Like, you can't, I have buyers who never bought because they were waiting for rates to come down more. Right. And then rates jumped up, and then they were like, oh, well, they're going to come back down. But that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and they still have never bought anything.
Right.
But guess what? House prices are way up. So
I'm not seeing house prices come down drastically.
No. And so they missed out because they waited. There's also a cost of waiting, and a lot of people saw that. I have people who bought in the last year who were like, they lost out because they waited. Now they ended up buying a house, which is great. They're in, but they would have been in a better situation buying a year earlier because prices were a little lower and rates were a little lower.
Yeah.
But to be able to time it, gosh, I wish we knew how to do that exactly. Just giving them the best information, you know, that they can for them to make a decision for their family at that time. Also, I think one good thing for them is to decide what you want to sacrifice. Is there something I can sacrifice to take if I have to take a lesser house than I wanted to get in? Like, if you're talking about never being in it, I think that would be the strategy I would say for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good buyer strategy right now is to maybe find a house that's been on the market for over a couple weeks and go in and make an offer with a seller buy down to buy your interest rate down. And
totally.
You get into a house that way, and you don't have the competition that we had years ago, and we will have again when interest rates drop, because there's just not enough inventory on the market right now for the demand.
Yeah.
So I mean, the average first-time home buyer is 34 years old, and the next 6 years we have more 34-year-olds coming into the market than the baby boomer generation. So I think the housing demand is going to remain solid, especially for this area.
Yeah, the Gen X's are. That's us, isn't it?
I think.
Gen Z. Sorry, Gen Z. Yeah, Gen I don't know. It's
the millennials.
I think another good strategy is, you know, and Troy has good buyer's agents on his team, but is to find a buyer's agent who's willing to put in more work than just show you a house. I mean, door knocking, looking in neighborhoods where there's elderly people who you know are going to be transitioning somewhere, and finding those sort of are houses that need work. They're still livable but need work. Yeah. But again, that's more work for your realtor. So finding a good buyer's agent that's willing to put in extra work to help you find a property that, you know, I think there are deals out there, because there's whole real estate businesses built on finding deals, and they're still out. Those teams are still working.
Yeah.
So being able to get somebody to work hard for you to do stuff like that, I think is
searching the
strategy.
database for the ones that were on the market but came off the market for some reason. Yep. Definitely, we do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely see that the interest rates are having an effect on the real estate market. Do you think they're having an effect on kind of businesses and the overall economic growth in our area?
As a whole, yeah, I think a lot of things are tied to real estate. You know, I've seen a lot of new construction slow down their production of new product that they're putting on the market just because of the market environment, and doing a lot more pre-sales. Meaning pre-sale is basically you sell the house when it's not yet built. Yeah. But so.
Well, and I mean, obviously you already have inflation, but there's a lot of people who in the last few years also remodeled their homes and they used lines of credit. Well, the lines of credit have way higher rates than the long-term rates of 30-year fixed, things like that.
Right.
That's what Prime's tied to. It's tied to these lines of credit. Like, to have a line of credit on your house for $150,000-$200,000 that you just remodel, I mean, that's at like 10%. It's not 7%, it's 10%.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at people's budgets jump. Maybe they were paying a $700 line of credit payment, now they're paying a $1,400 line of credit payment. I mean, a $700 a month jump. I mean, that to me, that's definitely affecting. And you already have inflation. Now you have people.
Right.
They thought that they would at some point be able to consolidate those lines of credit into their, but they can't. They're not going to, because they have 3% on their first and they got 10% on their second. So.
It's all very complicated, isn't it? I'm glad we've got people like you to walk us through it and guide us in the right direction on what mortgage we need. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I go back to conversations that I have with people when I'm out networking and I'm kind of just generally chatting with people about real estate, and I do definitely hear people think, well, I'm waiting for interest rates to come down. I'm waiting for house prices to come down. I'm waiting for the 2008 market crash to happen all over again.
Yeah.
And I continue to hear that. But so how has lending changed to protect home buyers since that 2008 crash?
Oh, so it's drastically changed. I mean, the guidelines are way more stringent. The reps and warrants, I mean, I know that's a complicated thing, so I won't get too off track on it, but
get in the weeds.
Yeah. Obviously, these mortgages are sold. That's the mortgage-backed security market. That's where the crash was. There was a lot of loans that were in foreclosure and not being executed on, and so they've shored up a lot of that by the guidelines. One of the things you're not going to be able to get around these days is credit scores. I mean, you used to be able to no credit score, who cares? Or you used to be like, I didn't have a job. Like, I actually did a loan. I think my first loan was what we called a NINA. It was no income, no asset verification loan.
Wow.
So essentially,
and that was legal?
Yep, it was legal. And so that stuff is pretty much gone. So like insurance companies, they have their way of mitigating their risk by you have to fulfill these guidelines, and so that has all been it's way more stringent and strict, which is why you're seeing it a little bit harder for first-time home buyers or people who maybe haven't developed credit and things like that to get into things as it would have been back in the day. But those barriers have to be there, and that's why it's a different market now.
And people have more choices. There's way more equity in homes. I mean, people were buying with zero down, zero assets, zero income.
Yep.
And then, so, I mean, when they couldn't make the payment, what do you think they did? They just gave the house back to the bank. Now people are sitting on piles of cash.
Right.
If they had to sell the house, they could, and they don't necessarily have to do it right away.
Right. And that's probably why we're not seeing the same foreclosure rates that we did in 2008.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the clickbait is foreclosures are up 100%.
I know, from 1% to 2%.
And they say 2 to 4% is just a kind of a national average over the years of
kind of
foreclosures.
That's a normal market.
Normal market, yeah. I mean, people get foreclosed on for different reasons. It's not always income based. So.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So, well,
wow.
as we wrap this up, Brandon, we always like to hear about local gems. So when you're out and about in Woodinville on the east side, what are some places that you want to share with the listeners that your favorites?
That I go to on the east side?
Yeah.
Well, we always meet at Wooden Creek, right?
I was there a couple of weekends ago.
Yeah, we like
Fish and chips was pretty good.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've had a fish and chips there.
Oh, yeah. Tartar sauce was delicious. Yeah.
Nice.
Being a Brit, I was like, taste
fish
of home.
and chips.
Fish and chips, yeah.
Well, there's a great coffee shop in Kirkland called Five Stone.
Okay.
And I just say that because my daughter works there.
Your daughter works there. Yeah, that's been called a number of things over the years, hasn't it? It's right on the corner there.
Well, that's
Kirkland.
That's Zoka, I think.
Oh, Zoka. Okay.
Yeah. No, Five Stone is farther down. It's across from the park.
Oh.
Yeah. It's new. It's fairly new in the last year.
Okay.
Or so. I think there's one in Redmond also. But no, that's a good place. That's a good coffee shop to go to.
Okay.
What else? Gosh, we like.
Don't think about it too long.
We like to go to the Vine. We think they have good
Oh,
food
yeah,
there.
yeah.
The
It's
where?
good spot, but that's in Bothell. It's not-
Oh, the
Downtown
buying.
Bothell?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've been there too.
No, we like Bothell.
Yeah, no, Bothell is our community too.
Yeah.
So it's just, tell us where you've been and what you enjoy, and we can tell
The
everyone
Vine
else
has
about it.
that faux sandwich or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's like a twist on a French dip, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're now making me hungry.
I know. Poor Pam's on a quest.
Yes, I'm on a quest. All right, well, thanks for sharing that with us. Should we take a really quick break and then we'll come back with our kind of pseudo real estate roundup this week?
Sure, let's take a quick break.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
JB Family Growers brings you the Pumpkin Farm and Puzzle Patch to the Hollywood District in Woodinville, opening September 23rd through November 1st. Get lost in miles of trails on the corn maze, take a leisurely stroll through the sunflower walk, or enjoy selecting the perfect pumpkin, squash, or gourd off the vine in the pumpkin patch. Walk through our flower gardens to build yourself a bouquet to take home. Watch for events on our Instagram at JB Family Growers or on our website, jbfamilygrowers.com. Located right next to Chateau Ste. Michelle at 14063 Northeast 145th Street in Woodinville.
Welcome back to TLC 10 Life Community Podcast. It's real estate roundup time. So you ready for this, Troy?
Oh my gosh, it's my turn?
It's your turn, absolutely.
Oh,
I'm going to keep it really short this week with my question, but or
I
maybe
like
I'm
that.
not. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But so I have a question, and you can both probably answer this. And it stems back to kind of when I was in my youth, thinking about purchasing a home, not necessarily here in the US, but when we kind of looked at how much we could afford, the way that it was positioned to us was, okay, well, you have to think about the multiplier. So at the time, it was like 3.5 times your income was how much you would be able to get a mortgage for. Now I don't know if this is correct or not, but now I'm thinking it's more in line with kind of 8 times as your multiplier. So 8 times your income is what you'd be able to get as a loan for that mortgage. Is that how you guys think about things? Is that the correct assumption? Can kind of talk me through that a little
So
bit?
that means you can afford more of a mortgage now versus...
Well, probably not, because house prices are more expensive,
Gotcha,
but that's what
gotcha.
the multiplier is, right?
Okay.
So let's say
So
it's
from
around
3.5 to 8 means more of a mortgage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we look at more debt to income ratio versus the multiplier per se. That might be a terminology from the UK.
Wherever you're from.
Wherever you're from.
Go back.
It's right on the tip of my tongue there. It was like England to England. Yeah, I think I wanted to say England.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. But so, yeah, Brandon, it's all hinged on debt to income, right? I mean,
Yeah, and the reason you wouldn't necessarily look at a multiplier is because when you're looking at your income versus how much of a house you can afford, we have to look at what are your other debts that you have to pay. They're not just saying, okay, what's your mortgage payment and what does that get you? Like, I mean, point being, like, if you're looking just at a multiplier and you want to buy a $500,000 house, your payment's probably somewhere around $3,500 with rates around 7%. Okay, so that's, for you to qualify, we use debt to income ratio, and it usually has to be under 50%. Typically, they want it under 45%, and what that means is the amount of monthly debts plus your new mortgage payment added up, divided into your gross monthly income needs to be under 50%. General rule is 45, but in some situations you can go to 50.
That's a lot of math.
Yeah. Well, so but that being
a lot of
said,
variables. It's
Yep.
a show of variables today.
so if you have $3,500 payment, that means, and you don't have any other debts you're paying, that means you have to make $7,000 a month to have that 50% debt to income ratio. That makes sense?
Yeah.
But that's a $500,000 home. Well, $7,000 a month is $84,000 a year. I mean, that's like, it's probably close to a 6 multiplier, right?
Yeah.
But that's not, again, that's not.
That doesn't factor in any other car payments.
Exactly.
Or anything like that.
Any other car payments, any other debts, because then you would have to make a lot more money.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't necessarily look at it as, and as far as guidelines go, we definitely don't look at multipliers. We look at debt to income ratio. Also, I work with a lot of financial planners, and most of them, they're not even wanting their clients to be at the 50 or 45%.
Right.
Generally, what I see is they have their clients looking somewhere between 30 to 40% of their monthly take-home income goes to their house.
Yeah.
Now, because there's an affordability issue around here,
yeah.
that would be tough.
Yeah.
You'd have to make a lot of money to buy something around here to stay in that. But rule of thumb, I think most financial planners or experts would try to keep people into that sort of that spot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All good stuff.
All good stuff.
All good stuff. All right. So when somebody is trying to figure out how much of a mortgage they can afford or what they're qualified for, how can they reach you, Brandon?
Well, they can call me on my cell phone.
Do you know the number? Can you share it with us?
Yes, it's 206-229-3944. Or they can email me at brandonr@fairwaymc.com, or they can reach out to Troy and he'll send them my way.
Yeah.
He's
How
very
can
good
we
at
find
that.
you, Troy?
I am at tendhometeam.com is probably the best place to find me, or 206-504-3660. Call or text.
All right. Well, as always, this was a very enlightening show.
Uh-oh. Wait.
Oh, okay. I haven't finished. Don't worry. I was going to say, but you can take it away.
Porch powder.
Oh, no. No. That was not what I was thinking.
We didn't say porch powder.
We didn't. Well, you just did.
Yeah.
So, we kept it right till the end.
Yeah,
You were doing so well with a classy level
I
right
know.
there.
I just took it down several notches.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So-
What I was actually going to say is if you enjoyed the podcast, please remember to like and share. You can find us on all of the major podcast platforms. And if you're watching us on YouTube,
You can ding the dinger, which means you'll be reminded when there's a new episode.
absolutely. All right. Thanks very much for tuning in to TLC.
Thank you so much.
See
Thanks
you
for
next
having
time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Did you know JB Instant Lawn is more than just sod? We planted seeds of development and now offer a new experience. JB Family Growers is home to the Lavender Farm and Flower Market and the Pumpkin Farm and Puzzle Patch. Acres of beauty to enjoy through your summer and fall. Come check us out right next to Chateau Ste. Michelle at 14063 Northeast 145th Street in Woodinville. We look forward to seeing you there.